He is the project manager for strategy and process consulting. And he has over 20 years of experience implementing information systems, including new products, new business processes, and improving existing businesses. And he's got a very exciting project to tell us about today. He spearheaded an initiative to simplify business processes within global consumer operation, achieving cost savings of, and get this, tens of millions of dollars. I like that. So please give a warm welcome to Bill Reardon.
Thank you. My name is Bill. I've been a process pro forma user for 6 years. Thank you. Yes, what step? Today I'm going to talk about what step I'm on. So I thank you, Dave, for that introduction. I really have to say that I'm a member of a team that is essentially transforming the way that Hewlett-Packard is doing consumer support. And I have a little piece of it. I'm not totally responsible for everything, and I can say that Proforma has a role. There's a huge team that's doing this, so I'm just a little guy kind of reporting on the news. So the key thing is that there has been significant process simplification and significant cost savings, and so you'll see some of the things that we're doing to that. I will tell you that it is not a trivial task to do this. And so what I did is in today's presentation, I'm just going to pick on what I think are some key concepts that helped us get to where we're at. And to let you know, we have not only taken things from the customer experience, we've taken it all the way down, and we are now deploying it, and we have people using it. So we're beginning our global deployment of the system and the processes, and we are doing it faster than any other global implementation that Hewlett-Packard has done. And that's really where a lot of the savings comes from, and I'll talk to that in a minute. But first, global consumer support. We operate in 132 countries, and we support 31 different languages. One of the things that Hewlett-Packard has is about 120 to 140,000 people. And the reality is that every single one of us has a responsibility that if a customer is having a problem with an HP product, we actually have a method in the company that we will take that information and report it. So if you want to say how many agents does HP have, it's around 120,000. So know that that's part of it. When we look at the number of interactions, we can count the number of times people have called, and we count the number of times that people go use the web. And that's about 160 million, a little bit more than 160 million. And in the consumer product area, it's about 30,000 products. So that gives you an idea of the scale of and reach of what we're doing when I talk about global consumer support. The other thing, after listening to, I keep touching something that causes noise. Rumler was talking a lot about the business process architecture. And I almost feel like what I'm going to be talking about is the actual implementation of some of his ideas. We haven't gone down into the metric area, and I have no discussion about the metric area, but I can tell you that we are also addressing that as well. So I'm glad to have followed him because you'll see some of the things, some of the attributes that he talked about and how we actually put it in motion and how it actually works. But we first start with the engagement process. We actually have a business system model that we're working with. We wanted to focus first on the customer, understand what the customer requirements are, and develop those processes first. And then we are now beginning our effort to work on the enabler processes. Now that we've gone to a global capability, a global consistent consumer support experience, we are working on the enabler processes to make that and globalize that as much as possible. But that's the other element of the system model. And then finally, we have the driver processes. This really falls into the area of the management processes. The significance of this is that I'm really just showing you the concept. We do have, these are called level 1. Engagement is level 1, drivers level 1, and enablers level 1. We have 10 driver processes at level 2, and we have 8 driver processes at the enabler, and we have 6 high-level processes at the engagement process. And I would say that's really the value chain. So we have defined that value chain to that level. And we can actually go from those processes, from those level 2 processes, all the way down to what is a system or agent experience. So we took from the customer experience requirements, and we can take it all the way down to what does somebody do when they are engaged with a customer. This is a little something that just shows what models we've used in Provision. We have the processes, which is actually called activities. We've used very heavily. The fundamental design is that there's so many attributes associated with activities that we make sure that we tie as much as we can to activities. So you'll see that we're using the goal model for our key performance indicators. So that's our metrics. Things like first time fix is an example of a metric. We have functional requirements, which we actually are now using a requirements model. Before 5.0 came out, we were using something else. I can't even remember what it was, but that was a really nice addition when 5.0 came out, that we could actually put requirements in requirements. But those are things like the system shell. And then we look at the kind of capabilities that were available for various off-the-shelf tools, and that was our capabilities. And we also had some opportunities there. When we use off-the-shelf tools and IT tools, we see that there's opportunities there, and that also gets us down into detailed design requirements. I have this thing, this is yellow, we're still developing this, is that I actually was at lunch. I went in to see what 6.0 had, and I think it's going to help us in this area of releases and version control and so forth. So I think getting these yellow things taken care of is probably going to be tied to the release of 6.0. At least that's my first glance at what I saw in 6.0. This at a high level is exactly how we have gotten to where we are. So the first step was to clearly define what the customer experience needs to be. I sometimes joke is that the reason that we can be successful is because we have the customer in mind. And there are a lot of times in the sub-optimization that was talked about is that when you have the customer in mind, you can carry a lot of weight. And if there's a clear understanding of what the customer requirements are, which is what we have processes for developing that, we could then develop our business process based on that. Because we're in the area of consumer support, we have a lot of customer interaction information and so forth. So it really helped us define this. So we then defined what's called a happy path. Happy path is a technical term. If you actually Google happy path, you will find someone at Hewlett-Packard developed the term. And it basically, I actually think that the reason it's called happy path is because it's HP. But that's neither here nor there. But basically, it's really to define what is the most common processes, because you can always deal, especially when you're dealing in consumer support situations, there are always going to be corner cases and weird situations and complex combinations of things that are happening that we really didn't want. We knew we didn't want to design the system around that. We just said, okay, those things are exceptions. We have a process for handling exceptions. And we use the term happy path because it has a nice customer connotation. We're going to take the customers down the happy path. So, but fundamentally, it was the business. It's the next level down of the business process. It was fundamentally the level 4 processes that we then said, here are the end-to-end interactions that the customer has, and we could link all the way across the value chain from the start of a point of a customer interaction to the point that we could actually sometimes send a customer a survey that says, how were you satisfied with the support that we provided? And so we were able to link everything end to end at the happy path. Again, this is very similar to what Rumbler was talking about, is that Gary is, you get down to that value chain level and you can actually see all the connections, because this really is where the value is. So we define that functional capability by the happy path, and then we got an understanding of what the capabilities were. And when I think of capabilities, I'm really talking about the tools that we were deploying to deliver that happy path is the capability. So we took the happy path and we said, so what capability are we going to use? And we went to see how much of that capability would meet the defined customer experience. And so this was a key step to making sure that what we were looking at deploying still met the customer experience requirements. And so we actually went through a step-by-step. Here's a customer requirement. Are we releasing the capability that's going to meet that customer requirement? And then we went down and we did what I would call the level 5. We updated the happy path and we actually went down to level 5, which ends up being HP customer interactions. And HP can be a system or it can be a person, depending on how a person deals with HP. But that's where we went and defined in detail the process. What you will see here, or what you will not see here, is there is no as is. We defined our process from the customer experience. And this was critical because if we had tried to develop the transformation going through the as is, everyone had an argument about why they shouldn't change. Everybody could point to their as is, but I'm doing it this way now. And we, as a point, we said, no, we're talking about the customer. We're talking about the customer and their requirements. We're not talking about how you do it today. And that is how we avoided that whole sub-optimization question. And so people would come, as a matter of fact, even Proforma came and said, where's your as-is? And I says, it's on the shelf over there. We are designing. We actually had the inventory, just to let you know. We actually had the inventory. And one of the charts I'm going to show you in a few minutes actually shows you that we did tremendous process simplification by focusing on what the customer needs, not on what somebody internally says, well, I do it this way today, because then we would have had, we wouldn't be done. So that's exactly how we developed the process.